Welcome everyone to another episode of the CoachCon Podcast. We are up to episode 20 today. Fantastic guest for you today. We have Matt Strong on the podcast. So Matt is primarily a coach and educator. We're going to get some fantastic value today, around mindset, training, nutrition and more. So Matt, firstly, thank you ever so much for coming on the podcast today. Great to have you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for the invite. It's nice to have something fun on a Friday afternoon.
I appreciate that, mate. So, for those of us that don't know too much about you yet, obviously you gave a very brief introduction of you, but can you just give us a little bit about yourself, kind of how long you've been in the fitness industry and that kind of thing?
Yes, I'll try not to monologue too much. So my name is Matt Strong. I think with a name like that, you always had a kind of no option but to get into some form of fitness. Thanks, Mum and Dad. So I've been coaching for around about 20 years now. I'm 38. And I was involved heavily in professional sport coming up, strength and conditioning, such like that. Didn't had to drop out of that just due to some illness in the family and some life stuff. Was always coaching, and then during lockdown got more involved in the community again, in the industry again, with the formation of Physique Collective, which is a website I started with my business partner Joe, Christian, and Gareth. So that was an education site basically designed to really give very practical, easy to implement, no bullshit approach to fitness. And then when that sort of took off, went back into coaching, decided I wanted to make that a full-time thing as I was working in sales, sort of management, senior management role in sales. And then I've been coaching full-time for just coming up on 4 years. So I was coaching before then, but I mean full-time, 4 years. So as it stands, I have Physique Collective, and so Gareth and Christian left to start their own businesses. So it's Joe and I own that. I own my own coaching business, my own mentoring business, my academy, and I also run a acne business, which is acne solutions for bodybuilders called Acne Antidote. So that is all my little ventures, but they're all very much embroiled in helping people as much as humanly possible.
Fantastic. So firstly, I think it's good to dive into perhaps the coaching side of things with yourself. So for you, are you primarily just online coaching these days, or do you still do a little bit of the one-to-one in the gym?
So everything I do is online. Completely. So between my mentoring clients and physique clients, there's around about 100 clients. I don't really like to go above that. I think going beyond that is a very dangerous number in terms of quality of service and ability to get back to people, etc. So yeah, but I haven't done any in-person coaching since I worked in sport. So we're going a while back. So everything's online, which is a wonderful way to do it for my business anyway.
Got you. So primarily the types of clients that you work with, are you someone that's wanting to work sort of more with the competitors and that kind of thing, or is it more lifestyle or beginners?
I would say 90% of my clients are coaches themselves. When I first got into coaching, it was very much, I was coaching myself. I was a sales exec, senior management team, always into fitness, wanted kind of optimal physique outcomes, but obviously tying that into a corporate world, which wasn't always so forgiving. So coaching people that wanted sort of that sort of outcome. As I went more into the coaching route, because of my experience, because of the educational background, I was getting more coaches gravitate towards me, just because of, again, just the position that I was in education-wise and experience. So my business naturally went that way. And I'd say most of my clients are coaches themselves who want help. You know what it's like. You end up neglecting your own journey to some degree. You want to offload that bandwidth to someone else. And also, as the natural move coming to mentoring, helping people with their business, it's a very much a mix of the two. So yeah. I would say 90% of that. I do coach some competitors because, again, I work with the individual. So most of my clients will be doing more photo shoots, but the difference between a photo shoot and a competition really isn't that extreme for the level of condition that most of my clients want to get into. So I have coached a lot of competitors over the years, some great results. It isn't something I actively seek out, as opposed to my business partner Joe, who actively coaches competitors. But I will always make sure that if it is a competitive client, that we're going to just
Mm-hmm.
do our best for them.
Yeah, got you. So, from someone that's going from, say, photo shoot to stage ready, what do you think the difference is between that, or would you say there's not much difference in terms of leanness and conditioning and that kind of thing?
Good question. So I think it really depends on where you're at with the photo shoot. So photo shoot conditions, obviously, it's so broad. There's no criteria for a photo shoot. So when you go to a photo shoot, you could whip your top off right now and go and do a photo shoot and you'd be sound. Like, there'd be no dramas. But for most people, they want to get in a very, very lean condition to kind of showcase they can walk the walk. At least my clients anyway. So the difference between them in photo shoot condition to maybe true condition, again, class dependent, but let's assume it's men's physique, men's classic, men's bodybuilding, if we were looking at maybe PCA or two bros IFBB. The conditioning isn't a million miles away, but it's the kind of the last 4 weeks for most people of that, the suffer bit, the bit that's going to be the real grind. So there's definitely a step up in condition for sure. I mean, whenever you want someone going on stage, you essentially want them to be near enough fat free. You don't want to necessarily go into a photo shoot like that, because that's when cognitive function and general life quality goes down a lot. But we want to be close to that. So I've got a lot of guys who competed, so who've done competitions quite recently, and the guys who've done photo shoots quite recently, and the difference is not dramatic. It's noticeable to myself and anyone that coaches competitors, but the difference it's not night and day.
Yeah, got you. So when it comes to, as well, because something we talk about a lot of the time is like the output in terms of cardio, steps, that kind of thing. Is there a particular difference? I mean, obviously it is individual dependent, of course, but on average, is there a difference between the amount of steps and cardio you might do for, say, photo shoot ready, and then the next, say, 4 weeks to get to the stage? What's potentially like a peak output someone might be at to get really laid down?
Now, I'm going to answer this as it pertains to men, because I don't tend to coach many females to stage. I mean, if it was a female, the answer's going to be a bit different. I think you've only got a certain kind of threshold how low food can go, just in terms of getting all your, even just a general level of protein intake in. So I don't ever like to draw hard lines for females, but typically we don't want to go lower than like 800, 900 for an acute period of time. So therefore, cardio is going to be a key mover. Within a lot of the male athletes that I coach, honestly, I've never had to really go above like 3 hours cardio per week, just because the actual the efficiency for caloric expenditure is very poor, and we have to consider a number of effects. Not only the look, the fatigue through the legs, and people can say, "Oh, walking isn't that fatiguing." It's like, yeah, it's not day to day, but when you're 2 weeks out from a competition, everything's fatiguing. So we have to be very careful of every single metric of output. So yes, that can go up, but again, the efficiency massively decreases. You could do an hour on the Stairmaster, which is going to be incredibly fatiguing, and burn 600 calories. So, well, we could remove 600 calories across a week very, very easily, and I'd much rather do that based on the look. No, there is such a thing as a flux, so food in versus food out. So you're trying to have a reasonable level of flux, so keep calories high, expenditure relatively high, but there becomes a point where it becomes a negative feedback. So to give hard and fast numbers would be difficult.
Potentially, you would be more likely to pull food down than...
What I'll try and do is I'll try and give as little stress from external factors such as steps and cardio as possible, but I'll keep that relatively fixed. That will, of course, go up. We don't just want to move one metric down and just reduce food. We want to try and keep a decent level of flux, but I'm conscious I don't want to tire someone's legs out. I'm always listening to their biofeedback, and I'm also very conscious of a time component. So unless you are a full-time athlete, most of the guys I work with are going to be coaches, like I say. They have clients, they have lives, they have other things which are going to eat into their time. Doing double or triple sessions to be able to go and get cardio in and steps in, I try and have as little friction in someone's life as possible. Now, obviously, you've got to do what you've got to do to get lean, for sure. But if it is an easier proposition just in terms of I'm going to not have to be in the gym for 4 hours a day, I can get some steps done around the house, I can do it on a treadmill at home, I can go just for a walk, rather than going to do an hour on a cardio bit of equipment, I think it's always going to give a better outcome like holistically in terms of stress management, expenditure, everything that we kind of discussed there.
That's clever. I like that. So, and you, again, would you be keeping steps separate to cardio as well? That's
Yeah,
two
definitely.
different.
So
Yeah.
I'll use steps as a proxy for neat. Now, steps is not neat. I think people kind of conflate the two. Neat being non-activity exercise thermogenesis. So the general, when we diet, we go into a diet and you tend to have a relatively high level of neat. Neat is the hand movements that you make. It's the head nods. It's the jitters. It's the foot taps. All those little things which are, of course, going to be energy expensive, right? As you diet, you naturally will move less. You'll end up sitting there. You'll notice your favorite songs playing and you just sit there rather than bopping your head or moving around. You'll talk less with your hands. That's neat. We can't manage that. We can't control that. But what we can do is use a proxy for that in steps. So steps, we would say, if we say 10K per day, we're going to fix that at 10K per day, and it's always 10K per day, we're going to be okay. Then we'll add cardio on top as a separate measurement. The reason it'd be separate is we've got a lot of studies in this, whereby if someone does cardio, like let's say do an hour, let's say on the Stairmaster on the bike, they will then sit down and not move. They'll have almost a caloric balancing by they've done this expenditure, and now they're going to end up moving less to accommodate for that expenditure. But by keeping steps and cardio separate, you can use the cardio for its intended purposes, caloric expenditure, and then use the steps to maintain as close to a fixed TDEE as possible.
Clever. No, I like that. Because that's the thing. I think there's a lot of people who burn themselves out on Stairmasters and stuff like that, just trying to do a little bit too much, whereas actually it's probably more beneficial to maybe do a little bit less or look at pulling it perhaps from food instead, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially when you get the bigger guys who've got a high degree of muscle mass, you need to you're consistently playing this battle of like, do I run them flat? Do I fill them? I don't want them to lose muscle. And you're constantly playing this game of tinkering. There's no right or wrong way to do it. And oftentimes, you see a lot of the high level prep coaches, it's very much an art. They're just going off feel, off look, all these things. So we're just looking at concepts, and then we just how we play out that into reality is how does it work for the individual.
Okay. Someone I'll be interested to know as well. So your sort of education in this, obviously the knowledge you've got around work with athletes and that kind of thing, where does it primarily come from? Who were your kind of mentors and teachers, if you like?
So my background, I got an undergrad in sports science. My first degree was an undergrad in sports science at the University of Birmingham. And I was very, very lucky to have an exceptional set of lecturers there. So a lot of the lecturers I got taught by are world leaders in their specific field, notably Kevin Tipton, who was one of the front runners in protein research, Asker Drukendrup, who's one of the other forerunners in carbohydrate consumption for endurance work. So I was very, very lucky to have these amazing lecturers in my undergrad, and guys that work is still respected at the highest level. So that was superb. So then I did my postgrad. I did my postgrad in Leeds, so I did the sports science again. So I had some great lecturers there, and that was a mix of the obviously education side of it. And I did a number of internships when I was up there in professional sports, so I learned a lot from the guys I worked with. I was also very much in terms of my education of, I come from the time where it was very much Eric Helms, Alan Aragon, Lane Norton. Then more names come through, like Mena Henselmans, obviously Mike Israetel, who we've done a lot of work with, Lyle McDonald, all these like fantastic leaders of innovation within the industry. I was there when they were sort of putting out their information, the birth of the evidence-based movement, if you want to call it that. That's when I was coming up through the game, so I was kind of exposed to that quite early. Given the fact that I've got that education background, plus that, I learnt a lot. And I've been lucky just to work with some great coaches over the years. So I worked with Borge Fagerli, he's a Norwegian strength coach. He's unbelievable, fantastic. My business partner, Joe, he's incredibly intelligent guy, so I work with him. And we help each other out a lot. And I've just been surrounded by great coaches. I mean, I'm very lucky to call a lot of the top coaches in the industry friends. And just being around that, I think it's a quote, it's a cheesy one, but you're the sum of the 5 closest people to you. And I've been very lucky to have a tremendous quality of people, both from a human perspective, like great humans, but also great coaches around me. So I've kind of learned from all these different avenues, which has been tremendous.
That's very clever. And have you found that maybe for some people that you've worked with, you've maybe learned more on the training front from one set of people, more from like supplement side of things from another set, or is it just been
Yes,
you?
certainly. And I think I'm very self-driven. So if I don't know something, I'll always go and look. I was that really annoying kid in school. If someone say this is how this works, I go why, and I'd always get in trouble at school. But as an adult, it's kind of been quite helpful because I don't just take things at face value. And I think the other really nice benefit is the people I'm surrounded by are very much like that. So they want to have a conversation. So let's say I was very influenced by Borger Fagerly in terms of his work on myoreps and kind of the science behind muscle building. Alan Aragon and Lyle McDonald were fantastic on nutrition. And then you end up down rabbit holes and just diving into specific topics. And then whenever a situation occurs with a client, you go, I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to go and look it up. And one thing I'd always encourage anyone to do is don't pedestalize anyone. I think it's very easy to look at people in the industry and go, I believe everything they say. And most of the guys would encourage you not to do that. So whenever I hear someone say something, I go, that's interesting, I'm going to go and look that up because I don't necessarily take that at face value. I'll respect their opinion, but I want to go and form my own. So I think that's something I would really encourage people to do is be a bit more critical rather than just looking at someone saying this, I trust this person, therefore I should do it. We're all fallible. I'm sure I've made loads of mistakes in terms of delivering information just from my interpretation. So I'd always encourage everyone to just fact check, not because you believe people to be false or believe people to try and pull the wool over your eyes, just because it's the scientifically integral thing to do.
Got you. I like that. And as well, of course, we have this new thing that's come in, sort of the new school versus old school, all that kind of thing. And where do you kind of sit with that? Obviously, there's a lot around the science-based lifting and then going back to how Dorian Yates trained and that kind of thing. Do you sit on a particular side of it, or do you feel you take bits from both sides? Or
I would say I'm probably a bit in the middle. So I think evidence-based is a fantastic place to start. I think being evidence-based, it's kind of been bastardized, if I'm being completely honest. When I consider what I mean by evidence-based, I mean looking at all the available evidence, and I mean all of it. That includes anecdote, that includes what I can see with my eyes, and we form an opinion based upon an order of hierarchy. So in that situation, we can say a systematic review or a meta-analysis of high-quality research of randomized controlled trials holds more weight than what Big John at the gym says. Right? We can probably agree that to be the case. However, there's obviously fallibilities that come in with research, because any research will admit, and having done research with my postgrad and undergrad, it's very hard to control all these variables. You're not going to get very, very applicable results to certain populations, because no bodybuilder is going to go in and be like, I'm going to do your program, which might be inferior to mine, for 20 weeks and see how much muscle I lose. Great. They're not going to do that. So you always got to interpret things, maybe look at things mechanistically, but still, it's a very solid bit of research. But it doesn't mean that Big John was wrong from the gym. He's called Big John for a reason. So some stuff that he's doing is also evidence. So when we look at evidence, it also encompasses what's happening in the real world that we don't have science for. It could be a consistent anecdote that keeps on occurring. So, and then obviously results talk as well. So whenever I see these evidence-based quote-unquote lifters talking about this is the optimal way to do it, and I was like, well, it isn't, because look at you. And I don't mean that as a slight on them, but if it did work, you'd achieved some level of physique development. I don't think an ad hominem attack is particularly helpful, but there is an element where if you're saying this as the optimal way to grow muscle, why hasn't it worked for you? You could say comparatively to another method, but everyone's speaking in absolutes nowadays, which I think is very dangerous. Ultimately, when we boil things down, let's take hypertrophy. We need very few things for that to be true. So oftentimes people are arguing about this absolute minutiae and agreeing on 99% of the bigger picture. Unfortunately, that's how Instagram and algorithms work, is they want to cause discord. So we're looking at these tiny little things. So when it comes to being evidence-based, I think we're all evidence-based. Some people just choose to put more focus on what's happening in the real world and what Dorian did, as in that example, as other people used to like to use research, which is also evidence, right? But I think the to be truly evidence-based means to take everything into account and weigh up your decision-making process based upon your values and also what everything says to you. Now, we're all going to come up with slightly different approaches. That's completely fine, but I think we also need to be aware of every point of view. So if I go and speak to Dorian, for example, and say, you could have done this more optimally, what evidence have I got to say that's true? None. And he can say, well, I did this and I won, was it 5 Olympias? I did all right.
Yeah.
6, there we go. So in that example, you go, that's all the evidence that I need from from him. I think it becomes a very silly argument to a point, because we're talking about things we will never know. But in terms of evidence-based, I think you've got to take the two. I'm someone who likes to train, who likes to do all these things. Evidence-based provides like when I say the research provides a good starting point that has eliminated a lot of very poor decision-making processes. Like, we need breakfast to stoke up metabolism, or we need to eat 6 meals a day, or all these general thoughts that we had. So it allows us to get rid of some of that, but it's never going to paint the full picture of the quote-unquote optimal way to do things.
Yes, and obviously this is probably something that would scale a kind of a long answer or a bit of a minefield, but what do you feel is like an optimum way for like training and nutrition? Just some bullet points of what you'd say these are definite non-negotiables and the things you have pretty much every client doing. What would you say?
The non-negotiables would be fairly simple, I think. So if we were to take training, is train with a good degree of intensity. And when I say intensity, I'm talking proximity to failure. I think that's pretty much a non-negotiable. If you're training further than 2 reps in reserve away from failure, and I mean a true 2 reps in reserve, not what someone says is 2, but a true, as indicated by rep speed, I think is the best place to be. So high degree of intensity as it pertains to effort. A good level of control, targeting the muscle that we want to target, I think is a non-negotiable. So that obviously then influences exercise selection. If we're doing those things, and with sufficient volume, whatever that means to the individual. So you're going to know if you track your logbook and you track your progress, what that means. So I think that's a vague answer, but intensity and accuracy are the 2 non-negotiables. In terms of nutrition, I would say caloric intake, protein intake, micronutrient intake. I don't think anyone's going to be surprised by that. Macro intake, definitely less important, but we're going to assume that most people are leveraging a higher carbohydrate intake, certainly in enhanced individuals. So they were non-negotiables. I'd say if you're looking to get optimal between 4 or 5 meals, or 4 to 6 meals a day, is probably your best bet, approximately. And making sure you tickle your micronutrition. Again, I don't think I'm going to break the world by saying this. For sleep, 7 or 8 hours a night, good place to start. Stress management, keep it as low as you can outside of training. Activity, include for some aerobic work across the course of the week. Anything which is going to be beneficial towards your VO2 max is going to increase your longevity, heart health, etc. That's a non-negotiable. And keep your general steps 8K and above. I think is a good place for all-cause mortality reduction. I would say as a general, very, very basic starter for 10, those are things I would say are as evidence-based as we can be, then everything else is going to be nuanced at that point.
Fair enough. No, I'd agree, definitely. I think with that, there's not too much more you can add in either. It's those things are definitely going to move you forward no matter where you're at the moment. And you mentioned there about heart health as well, of course, the cardio steps. That's obviously something that's very important as well. But in terms of longevity and things we look at, aside from the safer use model, which I'm sure we'll touch on and explain what that is that Physique Collective have shared with us. It's what other things are important you feel for like longevity and being here for a long time, aside from maybe the cardio front?
So I think longevity is obviously a difficult one because we're looking at it in 2 components. We're looking at when people say longevity, they're talking about quantity, how much life, and I look at it as both quantity and quality. So there's no point living forever if you're living like a mess. You want a good quality of life and a good quantity of life, the two mixed. Because I don't want to live for 100, but for the last 20 years of my life, I'm basically a vegetable. That sounds awful. So it's a mixture of the two. So in terms of management of that, I would say nutrition's obviously a huge element. We know that, I mean, if we're looking at longitudinal data and observational data, keeping IGF-1 lower is a good thing, which actually goes in against having a high degree of muscle mass and doing the stuff that we do as a bodybuilder. So maybe not too helpful, but it's kind of then quality versus quantity. We can look at things like sleep and stress as huge components. Training, I think, is going to ultimately give us a higher level of muscle mass, bone mineral density, which are going to be correlated to a longer lifespan, more higher quality lifespan. If we're looking after things like oxidative stress, we're probably going to mitigate any neurological decline, or at least minimize it. We can do a lot of things like, I'm a huge proponent of sauna, any kind of very parasympathetic driving activities as well are going to be helpful. And then also in terms of neurological stuff, managing your glutamate GABA balance, making sure you're not running into a glutamate dominance can be a huge component as well. So there's a bunch of different things we can do from a lifestyle perspective, but nutrition, activity, environment all contribute hugely. And we can pick the big rocks, pebbles and sand. I think a lot of people major in the minors. They're looking at I know plenty of people that worry about pesticides on their food, yet they smoke and drink every weekend. I'm like, I don't think that's your worry when you're sniffing a line of cocaine every Saturday. I don't think that's going to be it's not the pesticides on your food you should be worried about then. It's the pesticides going up your nose. So it's definitely a hierarchy of importance, but those would be some of the things I would speak about.
Got you. I like that. One you touched on there was sauna, and I think there's a few things that I've been told to do in the past by coaches, and one of them was contrast therapy with the sauna and the cold plunge, and he had me doing 20 minutes sauna and about 3-minute plunge, but repeating it about 3 times. And that was like multiple times a week. Is there a particular amount of time you should spend in a sauna and plunge as well?
I'll be honest, I am not up to date with the contrast therapy research. I know Joe was looking into this quite recently, my business partner, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I am an expert on this. I have looked into it. I know there appears to be some benefits to recovery, so I wouldn't want to sit here and give protocols. However, time in the sauna is going to depend on what type of sauna that it is and your level of management of that. So what I mean by that is, ultimately, if it's a traditional sauna, 80, 90 degrees plus, being in there to a point of time where it's causing excessive hyperthermia, so you're getting too hot, is a bad thing. Like, you can cause issues to your brain. There can be long-term problems. So sauna hats, towels on the head can be helpful. This is where infrared saunas can come in, where it's a lower temperature but more permeating to you, so can heat the body up almost like from the inside out. They tend to be my preferred option from a safety standpoint, and ultimately it's as long as you can tolerate, if I'm being really simple. And the thing I would say with sauna as well is it's also a stressor. People forget this. They go, oh, it's really stress relieving. It's not. Look at your heart rate when you're in it. There's going to be a level. Yeah. There's a level of hormesis that comes on from this. So we're causing a stress, and then we're getting a response from it. It's almost, in some degree, an exercise mimetic. Exercise in itself is stressful, and we have a response to that stress of adaptation and a positive net feedback. But consistently hammering that button is still stress. So I think we need to be mindful of that. There isn't a free lunch with these things sometimes. So if someone's saying do, 7 hours a week of sauna, and you are consistently fatigued, tired, not recovering, as well, you might be doing too much.
It's interesting.
I think it's what people forget. People are stacking all these stress reduction techniques. I say quote unquote, and it could be, I'm having a sauna, I'm having an ice bath, I'm in contrast therapy, I'm doing all this cardio, I'm doing all these training sessions. Oh, you know what? I'm doing jiu-jitsu or something else. It's like, it's a lot of stress.
Yes.
And stress is stress no matter how you stack it up. So I think I'd always start off with a minimum effective dose of, let's say, 2 saunas, 20 minutes a week, and see how you go. You don't need to go in sauna every day if that's not going to be conducive to where you are right now.
Yeah. I must say, just add to your point on my own evidence, when I did that contrast therapy of the sauna and the plunge, I was knackered after, and I mean really
I'm not
tired because I
surprised,
was
yeah.
doing it at Stadium Hall at the spa, and I was nearly nodding off driving home. It was ridiculous, but I
Yeah.
thought, no, I'm doing the right thing, and it was just too much. You know, you kind of got a rush after, like briefly you thought, oh, I've done well, and then you were nodding off in the car. It's just dangerous.
Yeah, I know that one.
So much. Yeah, so much of a good thing. I think for now, all I'm doing at the minute is just ordering literally about 20 minutes-ish, 3 times a week, and I'm feeling that's perfect for me at the minute.
I think it's a great level. I mean, I sauna every day because I've got one at home. But at the moment, I'm recovering from surgery, so I'm not actually having any jiu-jitsu sessions. When I have jiu-jitsu, that in itself is the biggest stressor in my week. I'll have to pull back on my other stressors to accommodate.
Right, yeah. That's interesting. Obviously, touching on stress as well, I mean, aside from sort of the protocol to use, as you say, in just general life with it, sleep, things like that. What other things do you do to help with stress and, you know, brain fog, things like that? Are you sort of journaling and that kind of thing as well, or?
Yeah, so I think I do a number of different things. So I'm a big proponent of journaling. I meditate. They're kind of the bigger movers. I like breath work as well, so I'll use that more reactively. And when I say these things, they sound very like airy-fairy, spiritual. I meditate for 10 minutes a day, and it's incredibly helpful to help like mental function, just a bit of release. Journaling, I think, is one of the most powerful tools for people to kind of improve their quality of life. Like, why do I think the things that I do? And most people never have any level of internal reflection. So spending some time getting to know yourself, because most people haven't got a fucking clue about themselves, is incredibly helpful for relieving stress. Because most of the time you'll feel stressed, but you don't know why you're stressed. So it's a good point to find out why. Why am I feeling like this? I love going out for walks in nature. I think they're incredibly helpful. And one of the biggest things I could suggest to people is scheduling in some free time and scheduling time to see friends. I think we've created this situation, certainly with online coaching, whereby everyone is in this quest for optimality. And I get it, because I'm on that train. Right? I want to be optimal. I've got business targets which are crazy, and I'm working towards them. However, that is there as a vehicle for me to live my life. My life is not the computer screen. My life is what happens outside that. So being aware of what the most important things in life is, which is my friends, my family, my loved ones, my hobbies, and making sure I have time to enjoy that, not to fall into this victimhood of being in the grind set. That's the biggest thing I can say is, I don't think anyone's ever seen their mates put their phone down and then come back and go, you know what, I'm more stressed now. Like, that's never happened. Yeah. So scheduling time in for fun, I think, is incredibly beneficial and will actually make your life a million times better.
Got you. No, I like that, because there's a chap I follow at the moment, and everything he's already on about the grind, bro. And he's put it on 4 o'clock in the morning. And I just think, you know, if you got no bed to stay in for another hour, you know, get your sleep out, mate. You know, it's yeah. So it's interesting that someone like yourself, who I'd consider, you know, high performer, done very well, is saying something like that, because I think, Tim, if you have downtime, you've got problems. You know?
Yeah, like I say, I deal with a lot of coaches, and they all run into the same problem of like burnout. And I've been there. I think there's times for get your head down and work. Right, there really are times for that. When you're up and coming, but you have to think: is this sustainable? Like, think of dieting. Could you diet an extreme photo shoot diet for an entire year? No, you couldn't. You'd burn out. But yet people are trying to operate like that within business. They go, I'm gonna redline myself an entire year and I'll be fine. It's like, you won't be. You won't have a life. And maybe you can do it for 16 weeks. Maybe you can do it for 20 weeks. Cool. You do that. Do that thing and go at it. But understand that is the same as a contest prep diet. It's not a sustainable approach to live your life. And it also is going to give you a shit life. Like, what are you doing it for? So it has to be a level of contrast where you're going, I look at it as a concept called, I've actually heard of it from Menno Henselman's investment and consumption days. An investment day is a day that takes you further towards your goal, so a positive step forward. Imagine on the game of life, you're just going forward. And then you've got consumption days, which either get you no further towards your goal or they take you backwards. But they're really fun and they're absolutely worth it. It's like a holiday. So this weekend, I'm going off to Manchester to see some friends. We've got a weekend of activities planned. It's going to be brilliant. Is that going to take me further towards my goals? Absolutely not. But it's going to be one of the memories that I look back at the end of the year and go, or like 2 years, 3 years time and go, what an amazing weekend.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to remember the time I was doing check-ins on a Saturday, but I remember the time I saw my friends. And that is going to allow me to work harder. And I do, and I'm going to have this is going to sound very egotistical thing to say, but I have a lot of coaches that say to me, I can't take any time off. And I was like, listen, I've got 4 times the revenue that you do, and I'm taking time off. So you can do it. Like, you're just telling yourself you can't, and no wonder you're stressed.
Yeah. No, I like that. That's a good way to look at it, definitely. I appreciate that. And something that we'll touch on briefly, so Physique Collective, is, I would put this out there straight away, that certainly helped me to learn a lot more about supplementation, about training, diet. I think it's a very good community in terms of what folks share in there about progress, contest prep, things like that. And it's very, very useful, considering it's $9.99 a month. Very good to anyone watching. I would say straight away, get yourself into Physique Collective. But one thing that I'll ask you on the back of that is, about the kind of supplements, things like that, so the PEDs, things like that. Is there anything sort of coming that's particularly exciting on the supplement front? Of course, retatrutide, something that's really taken off. But I think I was watching Dr. Mike the other day, and he railed off a couple of bits that they're working on in America at the moment. And is there kind of not any miracle drug coming, but something in particular that's gonna be a game changer on that front, do you think?
So it's a tricky one to answer. So we sat down with Mike earlier in the year. We actually recorded a podcast in his house, which was very cool. And Mike's obviously at the front line of this kind of like knowledge share. So there's a lot of drugs which we'd call them exercise mimetics or similar. Now, the thing that people forget with things like GLP-1s, like semaglutide, etc., they've been out. I mean, I first used semaglutide like 6 years ago. So they're not necessarily that new. Retatrutide, yes, of course, it is fairly new, but we were using that a year ago. So it's interesting to see these drugs that hit the mainstream, well, I say the bodybuilding mainstream, and they'll hit the mainstream at large in a few years' time. I think the GLP-1 agonist will probably be the biggest step change that we've seen in drugs since probably anabolic steroids. I think we will probably say that. The next set of drugs are almost the ones that are going to allow us to hold onto muscle mass. Now, I think mechanistically, I don't know how you're going to be able to do that without very high risk. I can't quite see how that would occur. We're talking a lot of gene transcription, and that to me thinks we're going to probably run into a lot of cancer risk or some other potential risks here. That concerns me. Again, I'm saying this just as a general thought. I don't have any insight to these drugs whatsoever. So to say specific drugs, I couldn't say anything. Obviously, everyone's talking about things like methylene blue, which is not a new drug, it's a very old drug. SLU, PP32, 332. That's a exercise mimetic. Everyone's very excited about that. Again, I'm still waiting for a bit more data on those drugs. I mean, obviously, anecdotally, seems to work quite well, but my position is I'm not sure what the human dosing would be. I was just going to say, a lot of these peptides and stuff that's come, we don't know. I mean, just quickly, just on the SLU, so there's typically your tablets you can get for that. It's like 500 micrograms or thereabouts. Yeah, 250 usually.
So sorry, I was thinking if you take 2 to get the 500 micrograms. So 250, and then but you can get on another site that I'd say you can get injections that were the same 500 micrograms, but purely orally, it's not going to be as bioavailable as an injection. But then at the same time, there's some other tablets that are on about 20 micrograms. So it's like, well,
milligrams.
hang on, that's a very big jump, you know?
Yeah. So I think the issue we have with drugs like, I'm going to use SLU in this example. We only have rodent data. So whenever we got rodent data, we have to understand that obviously rodents aren't humans, and therefore how we utilize that drug is different. And within that data set, we're using injections. So let's just take the data on SLU. It's often given to rodents at 50 milligram per kilogram. So 50 milligrams per kilogram is a lot. That's a lot. We're talking multiple grams for a human. So like it's a large dose. Now, that's not how it works. You don't go 50 milligrams per human. You use something called allometric scaling. So what would be the equivalent human dose based upon size, metabolism, etc.? And even then, we would guess the dosing would be a couple grams, or so a couple milligrams for sure, minimum. So whenever there's a dosing at 250 micrograms, which seems 1,000 times smaller than the potential dose we would use, I go, is that something that we would consider effective? I don't know. Again, we haven't got any data.
Yeah.
We don't know if oral is less bioavailable than injectable. You'd assume so based upon a lot of these drugs, but we don't know. We don't have any safety profile in humans. So we look at all this stuff and go, might work great. It seems to work fantastically in rodents. How does that play out in humans? We don't know. We haven't got any data. So therefore, it's a crapshoot. And the bit that does amuse me to some degree, because I'm all for people trying stuff, by the way. I'm absolutely fine for that. My issue, I guess if you can call it an issue, as Physique Collective, we've had a lot of people push back and saying we actively tell people if they're going to take anabolics to take an ARB, because one of the biggest factors we see in terms of risk profile is elevated angiotensin 2, RAS system expression, which gives us a host of our side effects. We would say, as a prophylactic, take an angiotensin receptor blocker like temosartan. And people say, you shouldn't just freely prescribe this drug, which has got hundreds, or thousands and thousands of people using this drug, or millions using it worldwide. We've got thousands of study participants showing it's safe, very little minimal health effects, and it's been cleared for human use. Yet the same people that are fighting us against the use of that are like, take this drug with no human data, it's only been tried on rats, and we're going to try it at this number, we don't even know if it works. I go, that's my issue, is how can you possibly say that one's reckless and this one's safe when only one has been tested on humans, and that's the one that you're saying is dangerous? That's my issue with a lot of these things. I have no problem with someone trying it, and in fact, fuck it. Given how safe it looks in rodents, I would try it, absolutely. But we have to understand from the weight of evidence, we go back to doing evidence-based, are we going to be non-scientific now?
Yes, that's quite right. I mean, and the thing is, everyone's going to react differently anyway. I mean, there was a chap I was talking to the other day, and I don't think he was winding us up, but he said he'd been having this methylene blue and his piss had gone green. So, well,
I've seen that. I've seen that happen.
I mean, it can't be healthy. You can't say, oh, it's just a bit of a side effect. No, that's your body not liking it, surely.
Well, I mean, there is an element. It is a dye, so there is an element where it could be that.
Crazy. Yeah, it's it. I mean, is there any? I mean, as I say, in terms of all the peptides, things like that, are these all still being worked on, or are they kind of just appear in underground labs and it's just like, we'll just take these, or is there still a lot of evidence a lot of trials going into these things?
Well, I mean, SS31, which we would consider like a mitochondrial enhancer efficiency drug, has just been approved for human use, so I believe.
Brilliant. Yeah.
So that seems to be good. Methylene blue has been around for years, seems to be quite efficacious. MOTC, again, not as much research, but seems well tolerated. Even things like BPC, we have a limited amount of human data, but we have a ton of anecdote, and it seems to work very well. So there's a lot of peptides where, again, being evidence-based, we have to look at that. We have to look at the evidence. SLU appears to be being well tolerated. We hear a lot of anecdotal reports of very good things. But again, like I mentioned about the sauna and the stressors, we're now bundling all these things together.
Yeah.
We don't have any data on combined polypharmacy. That's the thing I'm
Yeah.
also concerned about.
That's it.
It,
Yeah.
it could be like George's Marvelous Medicine, right? It could be fantastic, it could be terrible. We just don't know. And that's always my concern with these things is we're all looking for this optimized efficiency stack and all these things. It's like, at what cost? Because there's no, again, I always remind people there's no such thing as a free lunch. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. There's going to be some downsides. We just don't know what they all are yet.
That's it. I mean, something I'll add to that as well is, of course, if we're just looking at fat burning, say, for example, someone's taking, T3, T4, Glen and Yohimbine, all quite stimmy, all known for fat burning. We kind of know about that. But if folks going to sort of still take that and then be on the 5-amino-1 MQ, the SLU, the MOTC, like, or are these peptides putting an end to needing them? Or are folks going to pair them up?
If we look at the rate limiting steps within, let's say, fat loss, it could theoretically use all these drugs and it would be phenomenal.
Yeah. Let's
see how it plays out. Now, I will happily say I've got some clients that have done that and seen phenomenal results. Results. Now, is that something that everyone should do? Is everyone in the position to be able to do that, to afford that, both from a financial perspective and also a health cost potential? I always remind people that whenever we push the envelope in one direction, we better make sure that we're covering it in the other. So if you are the sort of individual that is going to push the envelope in terms of, even let's take the mitochondrial efficiency drugs, SS31, MOTC, methylene blue, SLU, that is going to increase your level of oxidative stress. Have you got your stress management in place from antioxidant support to be able to manage that? So whatever you push is going to push back. So yes, these drug stacks may work fantastically, but if you're in a bad spot to start with, you could run yourself into a worse place.
Certainly. Yeah. I think the thing is that the main message on whatever comes out is if you still haven't got the old stuff in place of your nutrition, your training, recovery, so on, if you still haven't got them pillars in place, there's no point really in bothering with these, which was always the rule anyway, wasn't it? There's nothing coming along to overtake all of that, the natural stuff anyway.
This is it, and I think it's funny because we talk a lot about anabolics and we talk about that. There's no replacement for that yet, and it's like we've almost, I wouldn't say cracked the code because obviously there's side effects there, but we know what they are, we know the risks, we know how they work, and all the other things we're talking about are additional enhancements. But we haven't ever, we don't think we've seen any advancements in anabolics for 30 years. So and we're not going to, I don't believe. So it's very much, there's nothing necessarily new, and that's why I think people are excited about peptides, because oh my god, this is this new thing. But new doesn't always mean better. Yeah,
and again, it's the dosage front, isn't it? Because I know in retatrutide, I think the trials went up to like 12 milligrams, didn't they? But in terms of people I've spoke to, they take maybe 3 or 4 a week, but some people are taking it every other day, like 1 milligram every other day, but some people are saying like take 3 milligram every 5 days. Again, there's not a set code with this, No,
I think there is a level of personal experimentation that I always encourage, because I always think, how do you respond to this thing, right? Because there's, again, being evidence-based, we've got to take into account our evidence as well. So what's your personal anecdote? And I'll use anabolics here. Primo Masteron. Everyone will tell you, rightly so, Primo is a quote-unquote safer drug. I will always prefer Masteron because I like how it makes me feel. And there's no one that can tell me any different to that, because it's my personal experience. And there's no argument there. Again, if people's experience with retatrutide, they prefer bolus dosing or they prefer microdosing, cool. As long as you get the outcome. We know it's going to work. So however you choose to use that, it's going to be on you.
That's very interesting. I like that. It's as I say, I think more and more will come out over the next sort of 5 to 10 years, won't it?
Really? Massively, yeah.
More of a waiting game. Well, Matt, it's been fantastic having you on. Just before I let you go, where can people reach out to you, work with you? I mean, I'll say, first of all, I've been a part of Physique Collective. Fantastic, very, very good. So it's very much worth speaking to Matt and, of course, Joe on there. Strong Coaching Academy, I've rejoined that. Now it's moved to school, so I was a part of it when you were on Circle. Again,
it's still a difficult one to get the delivery right on that, right? But school seems to be a better platform.
Yes,
so if you can hear a squeaking in the background, one of my cats has decided to come in and stand in front of the screen. I've got 2 ragdolls, and they are consistently neediest cats in the world. So in terms of where you can find me, Matt_Physique Collective on Instagram is pretty much where I live. That's my main go-to. We've got the Strong Coaching Academy you can find through school in my link tree. It's physiquecollective.com. This is where we put up all our kind of evidence-based information. Any of the above. But yeah, Matt_Physique Collective on Instagram is where you can find everything. My newsletters, my free guides, my podcast, everything that I do is there. And honestly, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a phenomenal chat and just a perfect way to spend my Friday afternoon.
Fabulous. Well, we'll definitely have you back, mate. The way I'm trying to do it is kind of give and get. Once I get the 6-month mark, I kind of want to go back to the start and get people back in. So we'll give it till after Christmas, and I'll be getting somewhere near, maybe about March. We'll look at.
Mate, be a pleasure.
Fabulous. Right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. That was episode 20 with Matt Strong. Thank you all very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Oh.